Hi, I'm Thaddeus Wagnemara, and until recently, I was an ecological activist. I found my time was well spent supergluing myself to things and generally making myself a nuisance in peak hour traffic. However, as time went on, I found myself tumbling down the rabbit hole, and before I knew it, had chained myself to a tree. Now, despite the fact that I'd chained myself to a tree that was expected to be in the way of an upcoming road project, I'd made terrible mistakes in terms of being able to translate American dates to Australian dates in my Outlook calendar. This led to me being chained to a tree in which I'd carved "Asphalt is a salt" for much longer than I'd ever expected to. I was sustained only by the mushrooms that grew from my own feces, which were pretty awesome, to be honest. Doctors tell me I nearly died. But at the same time, I was wet, I was cold, and I was sad. I was saved by a road crew. What I thought was the bright shining light at the end of my life was in fact the double headlights of a diesel-powered steamroller, which eventually had turned up in order to build the road that I had fought so vehemently to oppose. And after they'd used bolt cutters to remove me from the tree and nurse me back to a form of health that allowed me to walk the 250 metres back to where I'd parked my car, I thought to myself, maybe these people aren't so bad. Maybe there's something to be said about this miracle and durable and flexible substance, asphalt. For those of you who are material engineers and civil engineers and want to call out that bitumen and asphalt are very different things, or for the linguists and pronunciation geeks in the audience, yeah, fair enough. I'm going to use it all interchangeably and mispronounce everything. I don't know about you, but I record my videos happy. But that you say, asphalt. What? Like, really what? Where are you going with this? Where's the joke? And there's no joke. Asphalt's actually pretty impressive. We're going to look at this through the lens of the three epochs of asphalt. Original natural asphalt, which is technically organic. Middle-aged asphalt, which is also sometimes known as white asphalt, because, like my fucking hair, it goes a bit fucking grey. And, finally, modern asphalt. Modern asphalt's actually pretty sexy. Wood. Wait, Thaddeus. What's an epoch? Look, it's basically an age like Dark Age, Middle Age, Victorian Age, but it's a lot easier to say, believe it or not, after 2 bottles of wine and beating my missus at darts, because that was pretty funny. It was like 5:01 and it came down to the last throw. Just pulled that double 2. Well, traditionally, through most of the history of the Earth, asphalt has been created by high levels of heat and or pressure and time being applied to shit that was alive. Now we've got a shortcut. We take all of that shit that was alive and is now essentially crude oil, which wasn't dinosaurs, it's mostly algae. I'm pretty sure there was a time where algae actually created a mass extinction event and then went extinct itself. But anyway, wet dead things eventually became black wet dead things that weren't really wet. We took all that not wet black dead shit and we decided to start boiling it off. And at different temperatures of boiling it off, you get gas, petrol. I like the word butanol. Propanol's not as good as a word. Stuff you can huff. But you get a lot of different hydrocarbons, and chemists know stuff. Like, they know stuff. You can boil a big tube, and shit happens. But when they run out of shit to boil off, they end up with basically bitumen. And to be very clear, despite the ability of organic chemistry to turn anything organic including asphalt and bitumen, into anything else organic, there is no tutorial in this video, nor any suggestion that somebody should make said tutorial for ripping up the local road in front of your nearest primary school and somehow turning that into methamphetamine. Really, don't do that, chemistry YouTubers. That would be irresponsible. In the first epoch, one of the main recorded uses of asphalt was to assist with the mummification of those kings and princes who have died. While very few were slain, many of them had deep running congenital disorders because they were in fact very inbred. As a way of honouring the pharaoh, after pulling most of his organs out through whichever holes you could reach into using a very large hook, they would then replace the mass of those organs with asphalt. This was both considered an honour and a respect, but I also suspect, in terms of the slaves who were responsible for entombing them, a little bit of a fuck you. So in the first epoch of asphalt, we had ourselves naturally occurring deposits that were bubbling away. They were horribly infused with impurities, and we'd use them to mummify the dead. But we came up with this idea that maybe, just maybe, magnets. Sort of. There was this idea that if we took a wound that was black and necrotic and horrible and poured hot, black, necrotic, horrible looking bitumen on it, and then wrapped it up so that it couldn't breathe, your arm wouldn't fall off. And we also had a lot of one-armed people who were driving horses and carts. All I can say about the use of bitumen in topical application is that they hadn't actually worked out how to do a colonoscopy at that point in time. So why bitumen? It's flexible. It actually has a good amount of tensile elasticity about it, which makes it a bit like latex in that it is flexible, but also not lead. This quality allows you to make paint using an asphalt base, which therefore will sustain itself despite slight house movements, heat, cold, and the child licking the walls. These paints, however, have mostly fallen out of fashion, given that we know children much prefer the taste of both lead and microplastics. Let's just fuck off the first two epochs, to be honest. They fed it to children and dead people and slapped it on stuff. There's no interest, well, there is, but after I was around of Canberra, I did, however, end up in a very, very hot part of the country, Australia, and they also use asphalt in order to make their roads. They also tend to put these roads in between places. Two places that are usually adjoined by road are where you leave the pub and arrive at home. Actually, before I talk about that, let's just have a moment to speak about how hot asphalt gets. Asphalt gets so hot that in the 38 odd degree heat of country Australia, which is a good many months of the year, getting out of the river, which you've been swimming in an effort to stay cool, and trying to take your giant rubber ring and slab of beer back up the river to jump in and do it again, one misstep to place your foot on white hot bitumen, which is still black. But even a second of stepping onto the road in that sort of condition can lead to second degree or worse burns that are agonizing. And there is no amount of my fat drunken feet trying to walk up a little white line in the middle which is going to prevent this. But the pub to home still has to happen, and you've lost your thongs because you're pissed. And when it's been 50 degrees in the shade all day long, even at 3 a.m. when you're trying to walk home from the pub, the road has maintained enough energy that you will still burn your feet to giant blisters that will take you months to heal. Trust me. It's at this point that you subconsciously realise that one of the things that they use in the modern era to base a freeway, highway, or a good road that they will then lay modern asphalt on top of is actually broken glass. They will take beer bottles, wine bottles, all those things that I make on a day-to-day basis, and they will crush them and roll them. And glass, given that it has a good compression strength, makes a wonderful base for you to be able to pour something like asphalt, which has a softer compression strength, on top of. You don't even realise it at the time, but as you're sitting there and knocking back the long neck and smashing it on the road, you're really just trying to, inefficiently, help create a better road for all drivers around you. Some more next generation asphalt technology comes into play with the concept of self-repairing roads, because the council's not repairing anything. In self-repairing roads, the idea is that the materials in asphalt have been tweaked just ever so slightly in order for them to be able to, over time, remend themselves and return themselves to their original shape. In the same way as metal has a memory and will attempt to return to its shape using that metallic memory, the concept is that you will be able to imbue asphalt with a memory so that when big fucking heavy trucks absolutely ruin it by parking at traffic lights overloaded month in, month out, leading to giant divots on the road, they'll eventually pop back out. Or when your local motorcyclist decides that I don't need one of those minion-shaped pucks to stop my kickstand, they will eventually repair themselves. I'm not going to give too much crap to motorcyclists. One day, I'm going to require a liver transplant, and it's very likely that a motorcyclist will be where it comes from. One of the smart asphalt ideas that I think is actually quite interesting is that of piezoelectric powered asphalt ground. In this case, the floor is in fact not lava, but electricity. The concept here is that using the flexibility of asphalt in conjunction with piezoelectric materials, you know, the ones that go click clunk, click clunk and make your stove, those will generate electricity that can be used to either power the cars or the streetlights around it, but given that I'm an Australian, more likely used to power the same speeding cameras that will make me pay for my road usage 3 times over. But I do think there is actually quite a bit of benefit here. Aside from the idea of an electric vehicle charging itself through some sort of induction power as it drives up the same road, as opposed to having to stop for many hours whilst charging at the side of the road in a country town where there's nothing but a Macca's and a Mobil, this is pretty cool. I can imagine children taking their mobile phones and placing them on the road like some sort of dreadful $1,000 game of Celery Generals. On that, I do believe that my favourite appearance of asphalt in any popular culture, video, production, song, or pornographic film in many years is that of the appearance of road in the Tom Green TV show from roughly 1999, where they play Celery Generals on the side of a road. For those of you who don't know what this is all about, I recommend you get your celery and your cherry tomatoes, some toothpicks, and go out in the hot sun. One of the other curious properties of asphalt is that it's very dense, along with its flexibility, which is uncommon in most materials that you can find lying around just next to the road. This means that it's very good at being able to capture and store the energy from sound waves. So, the next time that you're considering your recording studio and thinking of eggshells or old mattresses or whatever the fuck they sell on eBay in order to make you think that your neighbours aren't going to be annoyed with you, because the only way to actually stop sound waves really effectively is mass. How about you just go and steal a nearby road? And here's a hot tip from Thad. A lot of people have been complaining about rats, mice, possums, opossums, cats, whatever. Things that people make personas out of. All those persona animals really like eating soy. Go figure. And instead of using plastics, a lot of the wire looms in a modern vehicle are made from soy. A better choice for these wire looms that is still built from a waste product, but at least doesn't encourage all forms of vermin and furries to eat the wiring from your car, could in fact be bitumen. So the sum of all of those different parts is that you may one day be sitting in your metal road carriage, which is on asphalt, powered by asphalt, the sound dampening applied by asphalt, the looms of wire that help it keep moving sealed by asphalt, and the paint on the outside made from asphalt. I mean, why aren't you eating more asphalt? It's fucking amazing. What concerns me a little bit is that there's a big push because of the environmental impacts of asphalt and generally of using hydrocarbon fossil fuels where they're derived from, is replacing them could be a little bit more perilous than we think. One thing that asphalt has going for it is the elasticity and the flexibility that we keep talking about. However, there's not a lot of materials out there that can do the same job. While I am extraordinarily concerned, was chained to a tree, I miss my tree, about the impact of those hydrocarbons and fossil fuels on our global climate and fucking surviving here on Earth, there is a bigger issue in what we're seeing with polymers and plastics and other replacement flexible materials. While they do have some of the same qualities and are very durable and long-lasting, it's that long-lasting that has turned out to be quite a bit of a problem. My genitals are filled with microplastics and, until the other day, not asphalt. Look, I set myself a fucking challenge. Who can talk for this long about fucking asphalt and make it even vaguely interesting? I don't know if I have or not, but fuck it. It's worth a go. This is why I'm here. Have a go. If there's one lesson I can give everyone out there right now, fucking try and fail. I just want to be very clear. Big Asphalt hasn't paid for this video. I've just personally fallen in love with a soft, warm, semi-elastic material that gives off hydrocarbon fumes. And I've only had 2 to 3 cups of it today. Alright, 8. I'm Thaddeus McNamara, and I'm whacking odd.